بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullahu khairan for joining me in this lesson. Inshallah, today we will be discussing Hamzatul Wasl and Hamzatul Qat', and these are both Hamzas that we will see at the beginning of words. Inshallah, we will discuss how to identify them and how to pronounce them when we see them. So the first one is Hamzatul Qat', and it is very easy to identify and pronounce. And the way to identify it is just by looking for the Hamza shape. Okay, so once we see this, or we see something like this at the beginning of a word, then we know this is instantly Hamzatul Qat', because you can clearly see the Hamza written. And you will see either fatha, a kasra under it, or dhamma, so you know how to pronounce it as well. So once it has a fatha in it, you would say a. If it has a kasra under it, you would say e. If it has a dhamma on top of it, you would say u. So this is quite easy to identify and to pronounce. The hard part is when we get to Hamzatul Wasl. Hamzatul Wasl can be a bit tricky because it does not have a dhamma written on top of it. It doesn't have a kasra under it. It doesn't have a fatha on top of it. And sometimes it will just come bare like this, and it actually resembles an alif. And this can be confusing sometimes. So how do we pronounce Hamzatul Wasl when we see it? So inshallah, if we go down to the next slide, we will look at some of the rules related to Hamzatul Wasl, and inshallah, once we understand these rules, it should help us read Hamzatul Wasl at the beginning of words. So the first rule is, if it is followed by lam, so the first rule, if Hamzatul Wasl is followed by lam at the beginning of a word, then we pronounce it with fatha, like this word here, al-bayt. We have this hamza, and after it is this lam. Once we see this lam, we instantly say, okay, we're going to pronounce this hamza with fatha, because there's a lam after it. Okay, I don't have to write anything on top of this hamza, because I know that there's a lam after it. It's at the beginning of a word. This is a, and it's always going to be a. Al-bayti. Okay, so quite easy, alhamdulillah. The second rule is, if it is followed by other than a lam, so there's no lam after it, then look at the middle letter. If the middle letter has a fatha, on it, or a kasra under it, then we pronounce the hamza with kasra. So how do we find the middle letter of the word? So if you don't know the Arabic language, this might be a bit hard to figure out. So inshallah, we will try and simplify it in this video. So generally in the Quran, you're going to find the words that start with Hamzatul Wasl. They will look like this. Okay, they will come in this form: in kasara, ijtama'a, iswadda, or if'al, or irji', okay, or istaghfara. Okay, they will come in this format. So let's look at the first example. So here we have the word in kasara. So when it looks like this, then all you need to know is that the hamza and the noon sakina are additional letters. Okay, these two are additional. Okay, and the original word is kasara. Okay, so we are looking for the middle letter of the original word, and the original word is kasara. So you would take away the hamza and the noon, and you look for the middle letter of the original word, which is kasara. So we know that the middle letter here is the sin. Okay, and we'll go by fatha. So therefore, we're going to pronounce this hamza with kasra, in kasra. طيب. let's look at the second example here. Ijtama'a, okay, iktasaba. There's many examples like this in the Quran. So here the hamza is an additional letter and the ta is an additional letter. The origin of the actual word is jama'a. So we're going to take jim and mim and ayn. These are the three original letters, okay, jama'a. And we know that the mim is the middle of the three, so therefore we're going to look at mim, and we see that mim has fath on it, therefore we're going to pronounce this hamza with kasra. Ijtama'a. Let's look at iswadda. Any four-letter word that starts with Hamzatul Wasl, the hamza is the additional letter, and you go by the three letters that come after it. So sin, waw and dal, sawada. And the middle letter of the original word is waw, therefore we're going to pronounce this hamza with kasra. Look at the last example now. Istaghfara. We have hamza, sin and ta. These three are additional. These three are additional letters, and the original word is ghafara, okay, which means to forgive. So we're going to look at the fa here. Because fa has a fath on it, we're going to pronounce hamza with kasra, and this is how you figure out the middle letter of the original word in the Quran, so you can pronounce Hamzatul Wasl correctly. So let's look at this in this example here. We have the word idfa'. Okay, how did I know to say e? Well, first and foremost, I looked at the letter after it and it's not a lam, so I couldn't say a. So a is out of the picture. Fatha is out of the picture because we said fatha is only for when we see a lam after Hamzatul Wasl. So it can only be kasra or dhamma. Now, how do I choose whether it's kasra or dhamma? I look at the middle letter. Okay, if the middle letter has a fatha, as we mentioned here, or kasra, then we pronounce the hamza with kasra. The middle letter here has what? Fatha. So we pronounce this with kasra. Understand? Idfa'. Let's look at this second example here. We don't have a lam, so we can't say a. So let's look at the middle letter. The middle letter of this word is actually the qaf here. Even though it is not directly in the middle, this is the middle letter, qaf. And the qaf has a kasra under it. So the hamza has to be pronounced with a kasra. Istaqim. Okay, and so on and so forth. And inshallah, we'll look at some more examples of that later. So the last rule is the third rule, and it is when we have Hamzatul Wasl. It does not have a lam, it's followed by other than a lam, so there's no lam after it. It's at the beginning of a word. We look at the middle letter again, but this time the middle letter has a dhamma on it. Okay, the middle letter doesn't have a kasra, it doesn't have a fatha on top of it, it has a dhamma. Then we pronounce the hamza with dhamma. So here, for instance, we didn't have a lam, so we know we don't say a. Okay, so what we do now is we look at the middle letter. Okay, the middle letter has dhamma on it, so here I know I have to say dhamma. So I say ushdud. Okay. And then the last rule is if you are joining, okay, this is when you're joining now, to Hamzatul Wasl from another letter or word, then you skip Hamzatul Wasl completely. you skip Hamzatul Wasl and you go straight to the letter after it. So the example I gave here is, the same one as this. It's this example, but we put a letter before it. So we have this waw. Am I going to say wa ushdud? No, I'm not going to say wa ushdud. I'm going to say washdud. I'm going straight from the waw to the sheen. I'm skipping Hamzatul Wasl. So this fourth rule is quite easy. It's just that when we see a letter before Hamzatul Wasl, or we have a word before it and we're joining, we skip Hamzatul Wasl and we go straight to the letter after it. So if we look at this first example here, we have the word fa'a'rid. Here we can clearly see this is Hamzatul Qata', okay, because the Hamza is clearly written on it. And what's on top of the Hamza? A fatha. So we say fa'a, okay, fa'a, and then we go to the ain, fa'a, because it's a sukoon in the ain, we stop the ain, fa'a'rid. Okay, now we're going to this word. This is not Hamzatul Qata' anymore because we have this sad looking shape on top. This is a sign of Hamzatul Wasl. And because we have a letter before it, we don't have to pronounce this Hamza. We just go straight to the letter after it. So we say fa'bud. So let's just say this fa was not here and we were starting on this Hamzatul Wasl. How would we say this Hamza? We would say oo. Why? Because first and foremost, there's no lam after it, so we can't say a. Then we go to the middle letter. The middle letter is the ba here. It has a dhamma on it. So here you would say u, u'bud. But we have a fa before it. We have a letter before it, so we don't have to say this Hamza. And we just go straight to the ain. So we say fa'bud. Wa asmi'. Wastami'. And if there was no waw here, we would say istami'. Why? Because the middle letter has kasra under istami'. فأرسل فرجعي فأخرج فاخرج. And if we didn't have this fa here, we would say ukhruj. Why? Because the middle letter has a dhamma. So I'm hoping you're starting to see the pattern here, and you somewhat understand how Hamzatul Wasl works. So here we say ka'alfi, and here we say kal farashi. We skip the Hamzatul Wasl. We go straight to the lam. Kal farashi. If we didn't have this kaf here, we would say al farashi. Why? Because we have a lam after this Hamza. And we mentioned that when we have a lam after the Hamzatul Wasl, we say a. So al farashi. فأسقط فاستقم فأصبح فاصفح فأشهدوا فاشهدوا واعبد واضمم فاجنح. Remember the qalqala on the jim. فارتقب qalqala on the ba. وأبقى qalqala on the ba here. وأبكى وأعلم. Skip the Hamzatul Wasl, go straight to the ain. وأعلم. We don't skip this Hamza because this is a Hamzatul Qata'. We can clearly see the Hamza written here and the Fatha is here, so we can also so we know that we have to say a here. So we say وأعلم فهل وكم لمن ألم فكيف أين وسوف. So alhamdulillah, this concludes our lesson for today. Please go over these examples many times as you can. Rewatch the video if you have to. And don't forget to book your course in with me. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.